This is Sky News at 12, our top stories. The Cabinet Office is to investigate the International Trade Minister Mike Garnier after he admits asking his secretary to buy sex toys.
We're live in Catalonia as anti-independence campaigners take to the streets. Thousands of people are already marching here in Barcelona, demanding that this region remains a part of Spain. But despite the opposition, leaders of the independence movement insist they are still in charge and Catalonia will break away.
Also ahead this afternoon, Heathrow officials insist the airport is safe despite the loss of a memory stick with sensitive files of the Queen's travel plans. Tackling knife crime, the outdoor gym made from melted down blades. And as Lewis Hamilton looks for a record fourth F1 title, we meet the youngsters hoping to follow in his footsteps. Very good afternoon to you. The Cabinet Office is to investigate claims of sexual harassment against the International Trade Minister Mark Garnier. He's admitted asking his former secretary to buy sex toys, but denied it constituted harassment.
These stories, if they're true, are obviously totally unacceptable, and the Cabinet Office will be conducting an investigation as to whether there's been a breach of the ministerial code in this particular case. But as you know, the facts are disputed. This is something that covers behaviour by MPs of all parties, and that's why the other thing that's going to happen is that today Theresa May is going to write to John Bercow, the Speaker of the House of Commons, to ask for his advice as to how we change that culture.
Let's go live now to Westminster and our political correspondent Lewis Goodall. And Lewis, we heard there from Jeremy Hunt, but what is likely to happen next?
Well, as you heard there, Becky, it's going to be in the hands of the Cabinet Office, and in some ways it will be in the hands of this document here. This is the ministerial code against which the government says, and Jeremy Hunt says, Mr Garnier will be judged. There is the one to refer them to the ministerial code and the Cabinet Office, because I don't know, really, if that will even last the day.
OK, Lewis, thank you.
Well, good afternoon from Barcelona, where hundreds of thousands of Catalonia's so-called silent majority who do not want to split from the rest of Spain are being anything but silent today. A huge pro-unity rally is taking place here in the Catalan capital. They want to stay as they are, very much a part of Spain.
OK, thanks, Jane. Now, officials at Heathrow are investigating after a USB stick containing confidential data, including the exact route the Queen takes to the airport, was reportedly found in the street. Well, our reporter Phil Edwards is here with us now. And Phil, what exactly was the information that was found on this?
All sorts of information which would have been very, very valuable to any would-be terrorist looking to mount an attack against the airport itself, or anyone using the airport. As you say, the exact route used by the Queen when she goes there, and the extra security measures that are put in place when she does. But that's not all. There were 76 different folders, maps and videos. Among them were a timetable of the patrols, the armed patrols that guard against terrorist attacks, details about all the different types of ID passes you need to go to the various sensitive parts of the airport, routes and safeguards used for senior politicians and visiting VIPs, details of the ultrasound system which detects movements on both runways and the perimeter fence if anyone's trying to break in. As I say, it was almost like a shopping list of the sort of data that any would-be terrorist would find very, very valuable indeed.
Who knew all this existed?
Well,
and
exactly.
Underground tunnels as well.
But it was exactly on the what you call it, the Heathrow Express tunnels. But it was found, as you say, by a member of the public. He was actually on his way to his local library to search for work. He was unemployed, and he was using their computers in the library. So he plugged this in, downloaded it all, and found this treasure trove of information. He passed it on to the Sunday Mirror, and they've splashed the story on their front page today. But we've got a statement, though, from Heathrow. Do you want to hear what they say? Here we go. They've said, Heathrow's top priority is the safety and security of our passengers and colleagues. The UK and Heathrow have some of the most robust aviation security measures in the world, and we remain vigilant to evolving threats by updating our procedures on a daily basis. It goes on, we have reviewed all of our security plans and are confident that Heathrow remains secure. We have also launched an internal investigation to understand how this happened and are taking steps to prevent a similar occurrence in future. Look, the worst case scenario of all this, Rebecca, is if someone had found this memory stick and downloaded the information and then circulated it on what's called the dark web, where terrorists and criminals go to buy sensitive information just like this.
Indeed, thank you. Now, 2 men are being treated for burns in hospital after an acid attack in Salford. The incident happened at the White Hotel nightclub in Lower Broughton in the early hours of this morning. The acid was thrown at doormen by a man who'd been ejected earlier in the night before returning armed with a knife. The actress Annabella Shora, who starred in The Sopranos, has accused Harvey Weinstein of raping her. She told the New Yorker magazine that the disgraced Hollywood producer forced his way into her New York apartment and assaulted her in 1992. In the article, Kill Bill actress Daryl Hannah also made harassment allegations against him. The spokesperson for Mr. Weinstein said he denied the allegations. At least 23 people have been killed and more than 30 wounded after a series of explosions in the Somalian capital, Mogadishu. Police say the first blast was caused by a car bomb being driven into a hotel near the presidential palace. A second vehicle detonated shortly after, and it's reported an attacker detonated a suicide vest. The Islamist militant group Al-Shabaab says it was responsible for the blasts. Now, tomorrow is the latest deadline for talks to reach a power-sharing agreement in Northern Ireland. With no agreement on re-establishing the Northern Ireland Assembly, direct rule from London could become the only option for the first time in a decade. Northern Ireland's devolved government collapsed in January over a botched renewable energy scheme. Now it's a big day for Lewis Hamilton. He'll become the most successful British Formula One driver in history if he wins his 4th title tonight in Mexico. And nowhere is there more excitement than at the racing track, where he set off on the road to greatness. Dan Whitehead went there to meet some of the younger drivers, hoping to follow in his wake.
This is where it all started for Lewis Hamilton at the age of just 7. Rye House karting track in Hertfordshire is where he spent most of his weekends as a kid, just as strong. Dan Whitehead, Sky News in Hertfordshire.
You're watching Sky News. Coming up, why did secret details about security at Heathrow Airport turn up on the streets? Welcome back. Now let's get more on how officials at Heathrow Airport are investigating how a USB stick containing confidential data, including the exact route that the Queen takes to the airport, was lost and found on the street. Well, let's talk now to Chris Phillips, former head of the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office. When the terror threat level in this country is so high, how on earth is it possible that something so confidential could get into the wrong hands?
Well, it's terrible, isn't it? But what you do know is in life you get mistakes being made, and it's clear that somehow, somewhere along the line, someone's made a massive error here. It is a security breach for sure, but it doesn't look as though at this stage that it's anything done deliberately. But of course what we do know is no matter what security measures you put in place, no matter how much you spend on gates and access control, it's always about people making mistakes or deliberately leaking information.
But why was this information not encrypted in the first place?
Well, they'll have to ask the person that's taken it out, because clearly, certainly in my day, anything that was taken out, you would have to have it on either an encrypted laptop or an encrypted USB stick if you had to take it out. Very rarely would you take it out. But it appears that someone, I mean, I'm guessing here, but someone's almost certainly going to be looking to take some information home, read it at home perhaps, and then has gone, and even worse, has just dropped it in the street.
And this is the kind of information that people pay a lot of money for on the dark web. Can we be certain that it hasn't been passed on to there?
No, we can't be certain, but it does appear from the circumstances that it hasn't, that this person's found it and passed it on. But of course we don't know what else has been taken. We don't know whether this is actually a deliberate theft, as in they intended to pass on the information, or whether it was just someone taking stuff home to read.
And we've heard that some of the details of the route that the Queen takes to the airport, other interesting things like, you know, the little cars that you use at the airport and the tunnels underground, some things that you would have absolutely no idea about.
Exactly, and that's the whole point. The best part of security is that people just don't know about this stuff. And as soon as you release it, as soon as it comes out into the press, we're talking about it now, for goodness sake, that then does weaken security, and it means that the security measures that were in place need to be changed, amended, and lots of extra work done. So I wouldn't like to be the person that's actually taking this out. I'm sure they'll find out who it was. Hopefully they've come forward and announced that they've done this because they have really made a massive error.
And what other details were found on it?
Well, I mean, lots of information about movements of people, how you get through the airport, that kind of stuff is just the sort of information that we don't want out in the public domain. Simply, not for any nefarious reasons, but simply because if people don't know it, then it's more secure.
And Heathrow Airport saying that there is no security threat to the airport because this has been released. Do you think that's the case?
I don't think this has probably raised the security threat levels. The security threat levels are all already extremely high. And, of course, the aviation industry, and Heathrow is a major part of that, is at the very forefront of the terrorist threat. So they're already operating at a very high level of security. What they don't need is idiots like this releasing information either accidentally or on purpose.
Are there other examples of when people have done this before?
Oh, over the years, there's been many very senior people actually have left things and dropped things in the street. I think we had an MP a few years ago putting things in the litter bin outside the Houses of Parliament. So there's nothing new about this.
Well,
yeah, I mean, the point is, you know, we do spend a lot of time and effort on security, but it's always people that tend to make the mistakes or let you down or actually are deliberate insiders. And, of course, that will be the biggest concern, that it was someone in there that deliberately stealing this information to pass it on, because that's a different kettle of fish altogether.
Indeed, I'm sure an investigation is well underway.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for your time. Thanks. You're watching Sky News. Let's find out now what's coming up in the sport.
Plenty coming up in the sport, including the latest from the second City derby. Birmingham taking on Aston Villa. It's currently 0-0. Also, what next for Anthony Joshua? We'll tell you all about his next move as he maintains his perfect pro boxing record. And, of course, we'll have all the build-up to the Mexican Grand Prix as Lewis Hamilton goes for a 4th world title. All that and more coming up at 2:45.
Right, look forward to that. Let's find out now how the weather's looking over the next few days.
Ensuring brighter days ahead. Blue Insurance Car Insurance. Proud sponsors of Sky News Weather.
It'll be mostly fine and dry and sunny after the damp start in the south, but a stiff wind down the North Sea will bring a few extra showers onto exposed coasts. It'll be on the cool side generally and chilly in the windy east, but the far south will still be fairly warm for the end of October. Most places will be dry with plenty of sunshine all afternoon, but northeast Scotland and England's east coast will see a scattering of showers running in on a brisk northerly wind. There'll be some coastal gales there for a time, but the wind will ease up later. Showers near North Sea coast will tend to die out from the north overnight, but a few will linger on over East Anglia into the morning. Elsewhere, light winds and clear skies mean it'll turn chilly with an extensive but fairly light frost developing. Wales and central and southern England will be largely fine, dry and sunny on Monday, although East Anglia can expect the odd shower. Elsewhere, cloud will increase from the west, bringing some patchy rain, mainly to Scotland. It'll be quite chilly.
Blue Insurance Car Insurance. Proud sponsors of Sky News Weather.
This is Sky News coming up. We're live in Catalonia, where thousands of people are marching to demand the region remains part of Spain. More on that after the break.
Will heed the message today. It's a peaceful one. They want to stay with Spain and they don't want this independence to continue to go ahead.
OK, Jane, thank you. We've got some breaking news to bring you now, and it's about the collapse of Monarch Airlines. Let's get the details now from our city editor, Mark Kleiman, on the phone. And Mark, what more can you tell us?
Yeah, that's right. This relates to the collapse of Monarch into administration earlier this month, which left taxpayers facing a £60 million bill for flying home more than 100,000 passengers who would otherwise have been stranded abroad. Now, today I've obtained a letter sent by Grable Capital, that was Monarch's owner at the time of its demise, to Lillian Greenwood, the chair of the Transport Select Committee, in which it acknowledges for the first time that it has a moral obligation, if it makes a profit, to defray the costs incurred by the Department for Transport in repatriating Monarch customers. Now, I'm told this pledge follows talks between Graybill and Chris Grayling, the Transport Secretary, and his officials. The big question here is whether Graybill, a private investment firm, will actually end up making a profit from Monarch. And that hinges on the resolution of a dispute about whether the airline's administrators have the legal right to sell its valuable takeoff and landing slots at Gatwick, Luton and Manchester airports. Now, if these slots can be sold by the administrators, part of those proceeds would be returned to Graybill as Monarch's biggest creditor, and so it could end up making a profit, part of which it's then pledged to return to the government. If it's not allowed as the administrator at KPMG to sell those slots, it's likely that taxpayers are going to be left to foot the entire estimated £60 million bill.
OK, Mark, thank you. Knife crime remains a growing problem in the UK, with over 1,200 people under the age of 20 victims of crime in the last year. Dealing with it sees getting both those involved and their knives off the streets. Sky News has been to a new outdoor gym in East London, which is managing to do both things at once, as Caterina Vitozzi now reports.
Growing up in North London, Chris was in and out of gangs.
This is Sky News. Coming up in the sports, we'll hear from...
ahead.
Welcome back. Now, it's a big night for Anthony Joshua. Let's get a check on all of the day's sport.
This sports bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
Buongiorno.
For life insurance that rewards healthy living.
Hello there, let's start with the second City derby at St Andrews, where Championship strugglers Birmingham are taking on sixth place Aston Villa. Dovizioso won in Malaysia. Well, there's more live now on Sky Sports News, and we're back in the next hour.
For life insurance that rewards healthy living, Vitality.
Let's take a look at the weather now.
From the clear blue sky of a Doha morning to the fresh autumn breeze in the city of love.
It'll be mostly fine, dry and sunny after the damp start in the south, but a stiff wind down the North Sea will bring a few showers onto exposed coasts. It'll be on the cool side generally and chilly in the windy east, but the far south will still be fairly warm for the end of October. Most places will be dry with plenty of sunshine all afternoon, but northeast Scotland and England's east coast will see a scattering of showers running in on a brisk northerly wind.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
This is Sky News. Coming up, we're live in Catalonia, where thousands of people are marching to demand the region remains part of Spain. Those are live shots there at the moment. We'll have more coming up after the break.